Hello, so welcome everyone. Tonight we're going to be going over Imbolc. Of course, I am Birch, if you don't already know me, Birch of the No Face. So tonight we're going to be talking about what I call the story of Imbolc. But we're not just going to be talking about Imbolc, we're also going to be talking about all the traditions that are being woven together tomorrow into our Advelitas Grove 2023 Imbolc ritual. So this ritual is weaving three threads together into a single whole. It weaves together the day, the name, and the season of Imbolc, coming on the day that it does. It weaves together the female ancestor worship of my own heathen and or Norse tradition with the Norse Dísablót, and which is also celebrated roughly around this time of year, off by about a month. And my own personal path, worshiping the goddess Lady Florida, hence why you see the flamingos. She saw the flamingos last week, tapped me on the shoulder and said, Birch, I need flamingos.
You need flamingos.
Flamingos and get the flamingos. Luckily, it was Opaluna and Carl's flamingos, so it was no problem. So in tonight's presentation, I will present all three elements separately, so you may have an understanding of each of them as they will be appearing in tomorrow's ritual. Now, a quick note about the ritual. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to have the ritual immediately after this video ends. If you're watching live in person, you're going to have an in-person class today and an in-person ritual tomorrow. If you're watching us through Zoom, we are not going to be on Zoom tomorrow. But we are going to be recording the ritual. I'm going to be combining the ritual and this class together and then uploading them to YouTube as a single video. And the workshop will also be going online, might be going as its own video, however, just so it's easier to find later on. So if you're on YouTube and you are have not yet been to the workshop video, make sure to also find the intro to homeopathy video, which will be online as well. I will even post a link in the description to make it easy on you. So let's start with the first element, the first weaving, and that is Imbolc itself. Imbolc does not have flamingos, but it is a Celtic holiday celebrating the first return, the first quickening of spring. It's set at the very beginning of February, and it is also the distant ancestor of the secular American holiday called Groundhog's Day. At Imbolc, the Cailleach, who is the earth goddess in her bent, aged winter crone aspect, will decide if she is going to make the day sunny. She will have time to gather more firewood, and this means that there's going to be more winter because she has more time to gather the firewood. But if it's dark and cloudy, then it's going to be an early spring because she didn't have time to gather as much fire, so she'll bring spring back a little bit sooner. So you can see how over time this would turn into Punxsutawney Phil coming out of his hole, being held up in the grand gesture, and lo and behold, he either sees or doesn't see a shadow. But to me, it just makes a lot more sense. I don't know about you, but I was like, well, if the groundhog sees the sun, why don't we have more spring? Because the sun is hot. Of course, I also lived in northern Minnesota, where the answer was you have 2 more months of winter, whether the groundhog sees a shadow or not.
Me too. We did this year.
It didn't matter. The Minnesota moose would look at the ground and say, nope, I want 2 more months of winter. So, of course, the post-pagan society simply substituted a groundhog for a goddess. But I still prefer the goddess, even over the moose. The Cailleach is also known as the Bone Mother. This is because all winter long, she collects the animals who die in the winter of cold, of hunger, natural causes during this lean and icy season. And she loves these animals so much that she prays and works her magic over their bones so that the animals may cross beyond the veil and then be reborn with new life in the springtime. I thought that was just a very beautiful story. Because you do see how at this time of year, it's depending on which climate you're in, you might actually start seeing little hints of spring. If you're in Florida, you're going to start seeing the first hints of summer. How hot and wonderful it is getting outside. Or again, if you're Minnesotan, you're going to be noticing that it is still very, very cold. I think it was minus 15 this morning back home. So there's no spring. Minnesota Moose says 6 more months of winter. Carl's laughing because he knows what I'm talking about. So the new life of Imbolc is celebrated and symbolized by those animals which tend to be giving birth around this time of year, most especially the sheep. When you see images of the sheep or the lamb associated with Imbolc, it's because it's partly where it takes its name from. Imbolc means in the belly, or in the belly of the mother. And this refers both to the pregnant ewes who are about to give birth to the baby lambs, usually sometime around February. And it also metaphorically refers to the seeds which are waiting just below the earth to be sprouted from her womb and become the plants for the baby animals that we see around the forest. And of course, Bridget is another goddess closely linked to Imbolc. To this day, in the Catholic tradition, St. Bridget's feast day is on February 2nd, which just coincidentally happens to be around the same day as Imbolc. Wonder where they got that date from. Historically, Bridget was worshipped as a goddess of fertility. Her feast day at the very beginning of spring makes a lot of sense. Before you go about planting the seeds in the furrows with your plow, you want to worship the fertility goddess to make sure that those seeds are going to sprout after they put in the ground, because that's the very first step, making sure you're going to have a harvest so you don't starve to death the following winter. So it makes a lot of sense now to do your fertility ritual now, so it's ready to go by the time you get to more of the planting season around, say, Ostara or Beltane. There's a lot of ways to celebrate and worship, Bridget even to this day, even if you don't have, fields to plant. Like a few of us, we have seeds we're currently nurturing and watering and caring for. I have my aloe plant. Finally, I let it go into different pots because it was overcrowding its pot and begging me for help. And you might want to create like a doll effigy of the goddess. On Imbolc Eve, you can wrap your Bridget doll in a piece of cloth, maybe like cotton cloth, and place it into a basket. You can also light fires and candles in her honor, because in addition to being a goddess of fertility, she is definitely a goddess associated with fire. She has a lot of associations: fire, fertility, crafting, metalworking, a lot of associations. So then here are some more common symbols of Imbolc. Blackberries. This was actually not one I thought of either. Blackberries are one of the Bridget's sacred plants. They are used both for healing and for prosperity. So if you're looking for Imbolc specific dishes, you might want to consider a blackberry pie or a blackberry scone and placing them on your Imbolc altar, or leaving them out as an offering to the little folk of your home to help them celebrate Imbolc as well. Seeds and seed cakes are also very popular at this time of year. Since Bridget is a goddess of fertility, and Imbolc refers to a time when the seeds of life are just starting to bloom within the womb of the great Earth Mother, then it does make a lot of sense to have seeds as part of your magic work at this time of year. And you could bake them into a cake, use them as part of your, your Imbolc cakes and ale, or you could do other magical workings with the seeds, goal setting, and that kind of thing. Or if you live in our house, I've been talking about this for a while now, bananas. Our banana tree was very generous, gifted us with 100 bananas. We have another 100 bananas to come. So naturally, we are doing a Lady Florida ritual with Florida bananas in a banana bread. Because, well, they were cut down with the sacred sayax. So some of the animals associated with Imbolc. I talked about this one a little bit earlier, the sheep. Imbolc is magically and symbolically linked to the birth of the lambs in February. Sheep and their birthing process are a sign of the renewed life at the very beginning of spring. Sheep, as well as cows, have very historically been used as a measure of wealth. You know, how many sheep do you own? How prosperous are you? You know, a little smaller than a cow, so more people probably own sheep than cows, perhaps. But how many sheep do you own? How prosperous are you? So when you do sheep magic around this time of year, a lot of that will be linked to, okay, you know, are you going to get a raise? Are you going to do better at work? You know, very material kind of fertility and prosperity. You know, how can we make our lives better in that way? Then there is, of course, the snake. I love snakes very much. You can see us on a snake hat. Actually, I'm going to just step over real quick and show you the snake that I brought. I'm not playing myself. So yeah, so we have turn that camera, Matt. Thank you. Turn a little bit. So yeah, over here we have Barry with the sheep. We have another sheep. And we have a couple of snake items. We have Pogo Rune, the snake. And we have my new acquisition, the snake mandala. The snake is eating his own tail, or he's just about to. It's fake or not, I love it. Plus, I thought it was really cool because it was extremely Imbolc-y and Celtic colored with the green and the reddish orange. So you're going to be seeing that in a future class as well.
I have a Bridget in the craft room. I forgot to bring her out.
Oh,
Carl, go get Bridget.
yeah.
Yeah, one of those. It's in the shelf.
Okay, yeah. So we have a Bridget too. And I know Patrick is very, very fond of Bridget. Your goddesses.
My goddess. In Ireland, even today, it is a national holiday, Imbolc. And the tradition is you go to the Shannon or somewhere like that, and you collect the reeds of the Shannon, and you weave it into a cross.
Mm-hmm.
And you take this home and put it in your home.
The Bridget's cross.
Yep.
It's like the Jewish people have the thing at their front door, so we would have it on the front door.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's all the same. And then you take the one you have from last year and bring it out to your barn to beget the cows, because without the cows, you know, you're gonna go hungry.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
So it's
Yeah, you want the cows to give birth because then you can use the milk,
milk.
raise the cattle, and
They still practice today, particularly in the West, not so much in Dublin, because Dublin's a big city now,
yeah,
but in the South, the West, in the North too.
yeah. Well, and I'll just kind of mention too here, with the Bridget crosses, they're used to protect the home from fire. because Bridget is a goddess of fire.
Yes.
So since she has control of that element, if you welcome her protection to the home, you'll be protected from fire. If you think about it, 100, 200 years ago, how are homes heated? How are they lit? With a central hearth with fire. So of course, the risk of something happening in the fire was very great. And they also can provide that fertility, that growth, that abundance, whether of a personal child nature, or of, again, with your wealth, with your money. And here's Bridget. Oh, she is lovely. See her fiery red hair?
Oh, gorgeous.
Symbol of fire. Yeah, so she is quite beautiful. Here, I'm gonna put you right by your snake. There we go, right by the snakey. So there's that. And then you can turn it back this way, Matt. Okay, maybe don't. Well, when you have a long veil, and you walk by a candle, you have to make sure that you're mindful of where the fabric is going and where the flame is. That is a veil wearing 101. So just to kind of go on about the snakes a little bit. So just as the snake sheds its skin and appears to come back to life from death, so the earth sheds the snow and the cold of winter and comes back to life with renewed in the spring. Snakes are one of Bridget's animals, and they are therefore associated with this time of year, the moment when the earth metaphorically sheds the skin of winter and becomes renewed and young again. And of course, on a more practical level, as the earth gets warmer, temperatures go up, snakes come out of hibernation. You might start seeing them again if you're in a temperate climate where the snakes have more or less hibernated through the winter. But yeah, we'll be talking more about snakes in March, so stay tuned. And yes, we talked a little bit about the Bridget's cross, but I also wanted to share with you a little bit about the Bridget doll. So the Bridget doll is often made out of corn, or in Florida, you can again use strips of palm frond. And once you've created it, you can put it on your altar, or you can also put it in the central place of your home and metaphorically welcome the goddess into your family. The kitchen will be a very traditional place to put your Bridget's doll. It's close to the heat, the fire, in this case of the oven. The kitchen is very often the central place of the home, is where the food happens. And, invite someone into your kitchen, it's a symbol of trust and friendship. But if you tend to find your family gathers more in like the living room or something, you could put it there as well. And when she is given a place of honor, she can bring fertility into your home, whether in the form of material prosperity, or if you want to give birth to children, she can help with that as well. And then there's a couple of final points on Imbolc. So of course, we've been hinting to this quite a while, but the idea of the Imbolc fire, the flame of Imbolc, it is a symbol of the growing power of the sun. As winter is beaten back, as the days get longer, the element of fire becomes more and more a player in the magic of the earth. Bridget uses the power of fire to bring fertility and warmth back into the world. If we consider this from the Florida perspective, you could think about how the wildfires in the Everglades are used to renew creatures like the slash pine, which rely on the flames to break open their cones. And so when you light the Imbolc fire in your ritual or on your altar, you are calling in the power of Bridget, the power of the sun, and the renewing power of fire as a force of fertility. So that is Imbolc and everything you know about Imbolc. So now time to pick up our next thread in the ritual. And this is the celebration of Imbolc. Imbolc is a Norse and a Germanic celebration of the Disir, who are female ancestral spirits and guardians tied to one's family. It is usually celebrated on the full moon of Morsugur, which corresponds roughly in lunar cycle to the month of March. In this case, we're going to be celebrating 1 month early on the full moon of Sunmanadur, or sun moon, partly because Disablat works well with the solar and goddess magic of Imbolc, balances better against Alpha Blot, which is celebrated in November, before the first 2 Yules, and also just because for some reason it just feels right for me to do it here. And since a lot of other things get changed around, what's one more thing? The important thing, however, is to celebrate it at all. And for that matter, even in places like Iceland and Sweden, it was usually celebrated in October. So there's really no one set month it has to be in. Just do it somewhere in the winter. Because the Disir, even though they might not be as well known today compared to, like, say, the Valkyries, in ancient times, they were extremely important. The Disir essentially held the fate and the luck of the family in their hands. If you did not acknowledge and recognize them, they could literally turn your luck against you. So it's important to honor them, because if you honor them and pay them homage, they would do the opposite. They would bring you good luck. And so yeah, they were usually tied to a single family, but they could also appear to individuals within that family, especially if the person was about to do something or could have some long-term impact on the family as a whole. And if they were looked after, given their due, they would look after their family in return. It was very much your classic Norse or Germanic give and take relationship. If you notice in a lot of the Germanic tradition, you get what you give. If you're willing to be generous and bountiful, they will be generous and bountiful to you. If you're stingy and mean and don't give them their due, they're going to give you your comeuppance sooner or later. And that's why, by its very name, when we talk about Dyrserblot, we're talking about the time in which you make a sacrifice dedicated or in honor of the Disir. Again, I am an extremely modern heathen. I do not believe in doing any kind of animal sacrifice. However, that does not mean we cannot do a sacrifice to the animals. Turn it on its head. So that's where we're getting our offering part of tomorrow's ritual. In tomorrow's ritual, if you're attending, or if you're going to be watching later in this video, you will see that a central part of this ritual is where we take an offering that we are going to donate to the animals. And when we give that offering, we are giving it in the name of the Disir, or to those female ancestors who you choose to give them to. We're going to be extremely expansive tomorrow with our definition of a female ancestor. So you'll see it in the ritual, but just a little clue: extremely expansive. Extreme. But when you make this donation, it's very important that it's given wholeheartedly from the heart. When you give this offering, your intention that you set as you give it will not only reflect back on you in terms of the luck you might expect for the coming year, but also it forms a blessing of whatever animal is going to be on the receiving end. We're giving them to a local homeless shelter. These poor puppies and kittens and other animals, you know how sad they look. They're in their little cages, waiting to be adopted, taken good care of, but desperately in need of a home and some love. So whatever, with this offering you're giving them, your intentions and your energy are going to be going to an animal that desperately needs your help. So if you are watching this online, you're not going to be attending, please, as you watch this ritual, maybe give some thought or find a local shelter in your area and just make a little donation in the name of your own female ancestors so that we can continue to pass the love on, not only here locally in Florida, but wherever you might happen to be. Yeah, so like I said, suffice it to say, you have more female ancestors than you could possibly imagine.
Mhm.
I have a lot. So now let's come to the third and final thread that is going to be braided into tomorrow's Imbolc ritual. And that is my beloved, a Lady Florida. She is a goddess who is very near and dear to my heart. And I'm going to tell you a little story about why. And, so first of all, in the German tradition that I practice, if you look at a map of Germany and all the names of the goddess, pretty much everyone had their own local version of the goddess whom they worshipped. Frau Erda, Frau Perkta, Frau Hala, Frau Hulda, Frau Berkta. So here it is, Frau Florida. Or to translate in English, we're referring to Lady Florida. The lady, the mother, the aspect of the mother goddess specific to this region. And I'm well aware that this is probably not her oldest or her most ancient name. I know for a fact she's had others, but she chooses me to use this name. So that's the name I'll be using in this ritual. But I just want to acknowledge that I know this is not the oldest or, nativest name she could use, but it's the name she wants me to call her by, and I choose to respect that wish. So, story time. I was introduced to her by a gumbo limbo tree several years ago. It was living in the backyard of some friends of mine in Hollywood. I was on a walk, and I was working on a presentation on sacred ecology for a class at a local UU church. And I was very tree starved, living in an apartment, and I was trying to walk around and think and get some ideas for this class. And I was walking by my friend's house, like I said, and this beautiful red gumbo limbo tree was like, Birch, come over here. So luckily my friends know me well enough that when I knock on their door and say something like, hi, can I busy your gumbo limbo tree real quick? They didn't think I was crazy. They're like, okay, Birch, no problem. Come on in, do you need a glass of water? So anyway, I sat down by this tree, and I just remember, kind of sitting cross-legged there by its roots and talking to it a little bit and explaining to it what was going on and what I was trying to do. And it basically said, let me show you something. And the next thing I knew, I was in one of the most intense visions of my entire life. Basically, I saw a web of light stretching across South Florida up through the Everglades up to about Lake Okeechobee. And in the north, I could see the ghosts of the fallen cypress trees and the panthers. And I could hear them, crying because so many of their relations and descendants had been wholeheartedly, completely massacred and wiped out to the last. Because if you go up north even today, even the biggest cypress trees you see today are just tiny little toothpicks compared to the house-sized trees that used to live there. And the panthers, of course, reduced down to the tiny little corner of South Florida they live in now, they're barely surviving.
Yeah.
So I saw their ghosts up north. When I looked to the east, I could see the mangroves, holding out the shoreline, against the hurricanes, against, development and everything else. I saw the manatees, trying to avoid the boats and the pollution and the red tide. And then I looked south and I could see the little pines and the palms, and somewhere in those little hammocks there were the little key deer just huddling, trying to find enough grazing ground for them and their families. And then, of course, I looked west and I saw the Everglades, both as they are now and how they should have been. And I saw the alligators living in the, in the pine hammocks and the little waterways of the glades. And as the gumbo limbo tree was showing me all of this, I happened to look inside the very center of this whole web of life. And I saw the goddess who was holding on to and connecting to all of it. And she sort of looked at me and I sort of looked at her, and I felt, it's gonna sound crazy, but when I first was like studying to do a year and a day, I had set up a little bonfire in the backyard and I swore an oath to the earth goddess that I would serve her. And then after all the bad stuff happened in the Peace Corps, and I wound up back in Minnesota, and I started begging the earth to let me have a second chance to serve her because I failed on the first one. She picked me up and sent me to Florida and never told me why. And once I saw the goddess there in the center of everything, looking at me, I basically felt her tug at the oaths and the promises I had made. And she was like, "You're my priestess now." No, not even any words required. It was just like automatic. This is why you were sent here. I need you to do, to do this thing for the animals and for me. And so from that vision, which I'm very grateful to that gumbo limbo tree and the goddess for, because it really changed my magic practice in a lot of ways, came this ritual. A ritual where instead of, basing on a symbolic or metaphorical look at the elements or the directions, we look at what is here or what ought to have been here in Florida. And we worship the local goddess as she is, with her own, her own plants, her own animals. So the way the ritual is set up, of course, in the north, we have the panther, and then we have the alligator in the west, manatee in the east, and the key deer in the south. And of course, we also acknowledge, those planter trees. They're native to each area, like the sawgrass, palmettos, and such things. And of course, at the center of the web of life stands the Lady Florida, who, like I said, apparently also wanted some flamingos.
Mm.
And who am I to say no to those flamingos? So anyway, that's the story of the ritual that you will either be seeing tomorrow, or again, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's the ritual that's going to be coming up next. So I think that's about what. Yeah. So again, just a last little thing, if you are not going to be there live, please consider, if you're here at the Grove to talk and make tomorrow, you can leave an animal donation anytime when you come back. Or if you're not local, just please reach out to a local shelter in the name of one of your ancestors, female ancestors, and make a donation as well. So it is 8:46. We have about 15 minutes. Does anyone have a favorite Imbolc story they would like to share?
Or anybody online?
Yeah, has anybody online got something they want to say? Now is the time to unmute.
No.
Everyone's gone mute. Come on, Panda, I know you gotta say something.
Well, if not, let me introduce you guys online to the 4 animals you'll be meeting tomorrow. So these were all made by the unbeatable Opal Luna and donated to the Grove.
Please don't beat me.
You are unbeatable. So this is Panther and Manatee. And then here are the 4 flamingos. Yep, 4 flamingos. 1, 2, 3, 4. So each quarter is going to have its own flamingo. And so then we also have, ready? We have the key deer, who is so small and so cute.
Just a mouthful. Chomp, chomp, chomp.
Yeah, but then here is alligator.
Chomp, chomp, chomp.
And alligator is not going to eat key deer tomorrow. No. He's got to behave himself for one day.
Right out of my bag.
I must say, as someone who has seen the evolution of this magical path that you've created. I mean, I was there for the very first presentation when you did it. We expanded it into a Beltane?
Yeah.
To a Beltane
Yeah.
masquerade. Everyone can
Yeah.
dress as their favorite Florida plant or animal. We have done this in parks all over the state.
Yes, we did it last year after the gleaning for the lettuce.
I remember that.
And so tomorrow it gets its own day. I'm very
Yes.
excited.
And tomorrow we get to add flamingos to the ritual. No, just something about these flamingos. They're just so pink. So, okay. That's all I have for you guys. All right, welcome everyone to the Imbolc ritual. The west wind is gracing us today at Easterland Park. So let's lean into it and raise some energy along with the wind. So we're going to begin with a quick pre-ritual here, gathered in front of the patio. Then I'm going to have everyone process first the quarters, and then everyone else come inside the circle, and then we will officially begin. So let's start by calling upon the runes for luck and wisdom in this circle. Starting with Soilo. So repeat after me. And feel the energy of the sun coming into you. And Kanaz, the light. And finally, we call upon the mother line and the father line with the rune Otala. Inside the circle and stand by your is dedicated to the land where we Today's ritual is dedicated to the like I said, we are currently heavily under the influence of the western wind, and papers are floating. So today's ritual is dedicated to the land where we live, to the local earth goddess Lady Florida, and to our ancient earth mothers going back to the very beginning of time. As you can see in the center of our circle, we are going to be collecting donations on behalf of our animal shelter, and at that time I'll be asking you to donate in the name of Our Lady Florida, whose blessings we enjoy in this beautiful Easterland park. Let us begin by drawing and sealing our circle. Lulu and Amethyst, will you please? So you're going to start at the manatees so far. And if you want to set your animal stuff on the main altar, might be easier. Pick it up again when you're done.
My panther, I cast a circle. My mango, I cast a circle. My almero, I cast a circle. My cypress, I cast a circle.
Next, we will call upon the guardians of the four directions to welcome us into the circle. Beginning with manatee.
I am Manatee, who guards this circle from the east. I swim slowly in the shallows and bask in warm sunshine. Life at my pace may seem too slow, but I welcome you to spend a day basking in peaceful buoyancy, unmoving, except to graze on that tasty bit of grass. Then you can just shut out the noise and rest. I am Manatee, welcoming you from the east. Hail and welcome.
Hail and welcome.
That's the type of inside. Smart. That's my brothers and sisters. Mr. Boy, I may look like a fragile creature, but I'm a creature of the Key Islands. That and adapted to these islands. We watch over the spirits who live in the Keys, and sometimes have to bear messages for. Sometimes we are called upon to watch over those spiritual beings and protect them from harm. I hope that we can learn to live with humans and peace for many years to come. I am Kid here. Welcome you from the south.
Hail
and
welcome.
I am Alligator. I guard this circle from the west. My armor is thick and my speed is incredible. I can sink through the still waters. The alligator like the logs that are often mistaken for me. And then I can seemingly fly through the air in attack of my prey. I have watched dinosaurs walk the lands.
this time, the mammals, our third ancestor, were small and big. They had to dart beneath the eyes and ears of the giant dinosaurs who ruled the land. But when the asteroid came from the sky and wiped out the dinosaurs, the mammals survived and the age of mammals began.
15 or 16 million years ago, the manatee returned to the water and never looked back. It is good to remember that the Earth's waters were our very first home, and if life on land doesn't work out, the rivers and lagoons are always there waiting for us.
9 million years ago, the first panther came to North America. Our skillful hunting changed the American landscape forever. We ate the primates who lived on this continent, but somehow you made it back. And now we see you and must live with you after you have changed the world to your own image.
Once upon a time, there was an old grandmother who had 2 grandchildren whom she loved very much. Grandmother Loam would take her 2 grandchildren on long walks through the forest and teach them the ways of the animals who lived in the forest and how to see the living faces of the trees. One night, she sat with her 2 grandchildren in front of a sparkling campfire, made of oak and ash and pine, and the children asked her many questions. "Who are you, Grandmother Loam?" they asked. "Where did you come from?" Grandmother Loam, who had lived in these woods for as long as anyone could remember, smiled softly at her little grandchildren. "I am the daughter of the lakes. I am the daughter of the woods, the daughter of the wilderness, and wilderness, the daughter of sorrow." "What does this mean?" the children asked. "We do not understand." And then Grandmother Loam said to them, "It means that our grandmothers and our grandmothers, going back 1,000 years, live within us, and we live within them, and carry their memories and everything that we love and is precious to us."
The grandmothers of 1,000 years live within us. They are in our minds, in our faces, our hearts, and our spirits. With song and with wildness, they come alive within us. When we connect to the spirit of nature, quiet time in the woods, by the lakes, or by the ocean, and living in harmony with our grandmothers. But too often, humans forget. We forget that we are not separate from nature, but a part of nature. And when we do this, we forget our grandmothers and become lost and alone. We mark this time then as a time to remember, a time to reconnect with the spirits of nature, with the spirits of the past, and with the spirits of our ancestors. In their sacred name, I will ask you to come forward and leave a bit of coffee to answer the sacred coffee card. No one at this point. We're not going to put our sacred card just yet, because we're going to do a meditation. When you do put it in, though, I want you
that shopping cart, please remember to say your dedication to the ancestor you wish to honor. And if you also wish to say out loud the name of the animal you saw in the meditation, you do so. Or you can recognize them in your heart.
what's on the ground.
Senko.